Hello there, and welcome to my little arty corner here in YouTube. In YouTube? On YouTube? Within YouTube. Yeah, it's a wittery day. My name's Angela Porter, and I'm an artist. And I'm saying that with some positivity, trying to. Sometimes described as an illustrator, take your pick. Illustration's more about storytelling, art's just about things that perhaps have something to say or a personal expression, I think. Possibly, somebody will pull me up on that, but I like to keep things simple, really. So, I love to draw, I love to create art. I'm particularly fond of drawing with pens. I add colour, but I love texture and pattern and intricacy. And I draw my inspiration from all kinds of things, from nature to architecture, to the cosmos, to science, to scientific illustration, arts and crafts, Art Nouveau, all kinds of things is all I'm going to say. And it shows in my work. I might mention arts and crafts later on in the video if I remember. But you're most welcome to join me on my YouTube journey. And if what I say helps you, even if you disagree with me and decide, no, that's not for me, you've learned something about yourself. And that's positive. Okay? But I try to share how I think, my hints and tips and my, things that I do that make my art mine. And I'm not saying you have to do these things, it's just here. And if you just enjoy watching me draw or like listening to my voice and my stories, then that's fine too. And I appreciate the company. So thank you so much if you've subscribed. I appreciate that so much, as well as thumbs up for videos, the beautiful comments you're leaving me and some queries too. And it's just absolutely fantastic. And thank you so much for those who came to the premiere of my last video. I think it was Sunday. Today's Thursday, the 6th of July. And it's been a few days, and I might tell you more about that in a moment. But no further ado, let me stop blathering, because I can blather. I could get an Olympic gold in blathering and wittering. Anyway, what you see in front of you is a pile of papers. This one I think this is the one I did Sunday. I'm almost positive, yes it was. But you haven't seen it completed. I've now completed it, up to the point of needing to put a background and some texture behind it. And I am going to do that digitally. I've got this scanned in ready to go, but I just haven't got round to it. And I'll explain why, honestly. But I don't know if you can see, but there's bits of gold on here. They're not very shiny. I'm using a gold gel pen, a pigment pen, and it seems to sink in the paper. So I think I'm going to stick with gold calligraphy ink and a brush, because I'm going to have to try and work out how much water to add to the calligraphy ink so it will flow from a dip nib. Knowing my luck, I'll end up with one big splodge from it. So I think a brush is safest. And some white. And I just love it. I'm so chuffed. I'm even pleased with my colour choices, but I tend towards these colours anyway. Maybe not so much the orangey and pinky reds, but I'm actually really pleased with them and the way they play with the turquoise and sky blue or aqua blues and deep blues there. It's a lot of fun. I particularly like this checkerboard pattern with the white spots in between. I was so tempted to put a gold dot in the middle of the orange squares, and I thought, nope, I want that colour to show. The white is just there to lift that black a little bit and to add something to the pattern. So I'm quite pleased with that, even though it's quite a melange of what's designs based on the same shape, but we've got different sized berries, and I was trying different things out in different kinds of leaves. And that's fine, it is what it is, and I have fun doing it, and I actually enjoyed continuing to add colour. Use Carin brush markers to add colour to this. Okay, I shall pop that to one side. Now then, I have tried twice to create a video in the last few days, since Sunday, to show how I create this kind of flower or some variations on it, twice. So this is my first version, this is my second version. Let's start with the first one. I've used watercolour paper. I think this is Bockingford Hot Pressed paper. It's 300 GSM, so it's quite thick, quite sturdy. It is 100% paper, wood pulp, and I just wanted to see, because this one has I think it's either, I think this one's 100% cotton, and just to see the difference between them, or if I could tell the difference. And I found how I use watercolours, or watercolour inks in this case, it doesn't make much of a difference, it seems, and I'm fine with that. Okay, it's cheaper, a lot cheaper, about half the price of the, at least of the, or at most, of the hot press paper, but it just means that I won't be so mean with it, perhaps, and not use it as much and try and get things around. Now, this doesn't mean I'm going to abandon the Canson Imagine mixed media paper or the Clairefontaine paint on. Not one bit. They've got their uses as well. But I really wanted to try watercolour paper because you know I struggle with colour. You know I struggle with adding colour and using traditional media, and I just wanted to see what would happen. And this has changed the game for me. There is gold on here, and you may get to see some as I move it around in the light. Some shine, come on. No, it's not going to go that way. Let's try. Oh, there you are. A lot more shine, and that's because I used one of these pens. Oh, you're not going to see it for the... There. It's a Pen Touch pen. It's from Sakura. This is the gold one. And they come in silver, gold and copper. And I'm going to enjoy using copper because that sort of coppery, pinky coppery colour I love. I was wondering whether they would lose their shine as they sunk into the paper because they are solvent based, but it seems not so much where I've put it over some gold ink that was down originally, but a little bit on the paper, but I'm fine. It's fine, it is what it is. I'll eventually work out how to do that. So these I used the Carmine brush markers again, and I love the gradients. Now these ones, same idea, same kind of shape, bigger piece of paper, different dimensions, and this one looks just too big. In fact, I haven't finished that one off. I haven't quite finished this. I think I smudged a lot of the gold dots. I thought, oh, just put it to one side. And I did video this. Don't know what's happened to it. It's disappeared off my computer. I must have deleted it. It seems to be the theme at the moment. Things are getting randomly deleted by me. So I'm going to have to pay close attention. There's some work to be done. There's white to be added. I like the white and pink checkerboard here and the white dots. They really lift the colour. They give that lightness there because the pink I've used is really quite vibrant. And with this I used Ecoline pens. Again, they've got watercolour ink, water-based ink, water-soluble ink in them, and they're very vibrant. And I like that vibrancy. This I love. Didn't put it in this one quite so much, but here I love the lovely, because I didn't have the space basically. Oh, the background colours, you're going to ask me. Distress inks. Good old distress inks. I've had them in my stash for years. I've got to have had them for over 10 years, well over 10 years. And I dig them out and use them every now and again. I had to add some refill ink, refresh the ink in my vintage photo, which was quite dry. And I've used, on this one, I know I used Seedless Preserves. I used Victorian Velvet? I think it is. The Seedless Preserves is a lovely pinky colour with a bit of purple, and the Victorian Velvet is kind of a dusky pink colour. But over the top I put a very light layer and a quite not perfect layer, so there were gaps and, you know, darker and lighter areas, using tea dye and to cover the whole page in. I used a bit of rusty hinge as well around the edges. Frayed burlap, and also vintage photo once I'd recharged it on this one, which frames the whole piece just nicely. This one I think I just used, oh no, I think it's old paper and probably vintage photo around the edge. Not sure which I prefer. I think I prefer the lighter version colour, but I tend to go towards the brownie, though this one does tie in nicely. Beauty of distress inks is that even though the colour may look quite strong, there's hardly any ink on the surface of the paper. So when you use water-soluble media, the distress ink will move with it. It's always water reactive, just like any other water-based media, but it doesn't colour those colours. As you can see, these are really vibrant and clear. You know, the pink would go, or the green would go a muddy colour with the pink, because pink and green make mud, basically, but there's none of that. The colours are as vibrant as they were. So these are some pieces of paper. Again, they are, I think they're all Bockingford. They are hot press paper, coloured with distress inks. There's tea dye and old paper, antique linen. I can't remember which exactly, but I'm going to use the tall thin one today. And let's get us drawing through some of these, this new style of flower. And if I lose the video today, I will curse mightily. So I'm just going to use a ruler and a pencil. I'm going to use a mechanical pencil today, and I'm going to draw very lightly with it so it can be easily erased. And I know that the lead that's in this is 2B. It's either B or 2B, I can't remember exactly, but it's a softer lead, which means that you don't have to press too hard to get a line, and there's a lot of graphite and not so much clay in it, so it doesn't damage the surface of the paper. The harder the pencil, the more it's likely to damage the surface of the paper. So I prefer to use a softer pencil, and even if there are pencil marks left afterwards, I'm fine with that. I really am. So I'm going to start at the top, and I'm going to draw, and I'm going to use a pencil for drawing. And I'm going to start by drawing the position of my first flower, and I'm going to keep them all over towards this size. Now I do want to have one that perhaps is a little bit smaller at the top. I'm going to try and keep them all the same size. So you can see I've just drawn here a U shape, which has got little curves on the edge like that. What I'm going to do here though is I'm going to go back and add another curve here. It's kind of a backwards S shape. Not a very curvy one, but I want to leave some space between these, because within this space I can put pattern and texture. I'm going to put a double line there, so I like double lines. They separate one section off from another. And then I'm just going to put 3 petals in like this. I've made these ones rounded, but I could have made them squarer if I wanted to, but I think I fancy rounded ones today. I've done squarish ones on all of these, so something a little bit different. And then I'm going to leave that. At the bottom of this, I'm going to put one of my architectural kinds of bases to flowers, and then I'm going to draw my stem in. I'm turning it upside down, and I will zoom back out so you can see the whole image, because I prefer to draw away from myself in some ways. I think I can see better the shape I'm making and where I'm going. It varies, it depends what I'm drawing and where I'm drawing it. Yeah, I'm odd, and I'm quite happy to be odd. So I could draw it just straight, but straight isn't quite as interesting as if we have perhaps a bit of a curve in it. So I'm just going to curve it like this. And yep, I've gone over the line, the pencil line, and I'm fine with that, because I'm going to make that like the heel of the stem. It actually looks like a little foot now. I could turn this into a fairy, couldn't I? Put faces on, this long nose, smiley face there. Don't start me. Rather, I shouldn't start myself. Okay, so hopefully you can see that quite clearly enough. You'll see it as I ink it in. So now I want to add some other flowers, so I'm going to take some stems off the main stem like this, and then I'm just going to draw another one of these shapes. This one's a bit more V-shaped to the bottom, but I'm fine with that. And perhaps here I will really make these quite narrow, so I've got a lot more space in between them. Looks almost like a tulip. And I suppose if I just drew this in, we could leave it like that with some patterns in. But I think I'll draw some petals in again. This time there's 4 in there. And I'm wondering whether I could perhaps do 3, 2 and 1. So it's the same shape, but it's slightly different. But then it's quite nice to have them having some things in common, isn't it? So we'll have that one like that. So that works quite nicely. And then I can do the little architectural base. My stem's a bit on the thick side, so I'm just going to adjust that now as a guide for me when I come to draw it. So here I'm going to have a stem that goes up this way, and again, oh, that one's a bit wide as well. Just going to curve these over just that little bit more. So this time they're going to almost meet here, but then they're going to go wider at the bottom, which gives me options for other things I could draw in that section. I could put seeds in there almost. And I'm going to draw some petals in again. And I'm going to create that multi-row again. Yeah, I know there's 4 on that one, but it's, you know, there's a space there. This one's just got 3. Don't count them. So with this one, I'm going to draw another one here. And what I'm hoping to do with this one is to actually draw it over the stem a bit. Perhaps not too much. Perhaps I planned that not very well. But I think with this one, I'd rather like it to be a bud rather than a full flower. So I've drawn it smaller than the others, or it's ended up smaller than the others, let's be honest. And so rather than drawing the petals like that, I'm going to draw them in a kind of bud shape, like this, as if they are overlapping and curled tightly up. So that'll work nicely. And then just one more down here. So I've just created that V shape there. Pop that on. So I've got 3 petals, so I'm going to do the rows of them like that, so they end up looking quite triangular shaped. And then all I need to do now is to think about leaves. And I think I may go with some fairly simple leaves. So I've drawn a backwards letter C almost. It's got a longer leg here. I'm going to go back this way. So I've drawn like a crescent moon there. And then I'm going to draw the rest of the leaf out that way. I'll do the same here. Create the crescent moon. And then draw the rest of the leaf in. And these can get smaller as we go up the stem. I'll add one over here. It's going to be quite a long, thin one, but I'm fine with that. And a really nice, smallish one there. So I've got plenty of them. And I may come back and add some little leaves or leaflets to the flowers, the stems of the flowers afterwards. But I'm going to ink this in first. Excuse me while I have a drink of water. So, my week has been filled with good intentions. I'm going to use a Micron 05. Thought I'd use Microns rather than my ink pens, my fountain pens today, because I can. Go on, stick on. And it's all gone weird shaped. Let me zoom out because I'll then not have to worry too much about where my paper is. All I'm going to do is to go over the pencil lines. If I miss the pencil lines or I draw them a slightly different shape, the pencil lines, remember, are always there just as that guide. And the 05 pen actually feels a bit clumsy, but we'll judge that later on. So I was due to have a friend visit yesterday, but the day before, Wednesday, I had a raging upset stomach and felt pretty grim. So I decided to cancel that visit, which was a good thing because yesterday, back and forth the loo like nobody's business. So it's a combination of foods, or some foods that I ate that didn't agree with me. And no one deserves to be subjected to that kind of thing. And I was pretty miserable with it. I had hoped to do some serious adulting yesterday because, yes, I still haven't got a washing machine. So tomorrow I'm going to have to adult because I need to get some clothes washed. So it'll be to the laundrette. And then I will go and look for a washing machine and arrange to have it fitted as soon as possible, which I don't know how long that will be, but hopefully not too long. That's my plan anyway. So that's happened. Tired. I'm better, kind of, but I'm finding it incredibly difficult to wake up in the mornings. And even though I go to bed at a reasonable-ish time, often before midnight, not always, but I often find myself sleeping in till nearly midday, which is ridiculous. So it is what it is, though. And now this goes over the stem and the main stem and the stem for this flower, so I'm going to draw this one next. And I do want some body to these bits on the outside, so that's what I'm going to do. Just like that. So there's that. There's not much else really. I think I'll leave that with just one line for now and see how I get on with that. Right, I'm going to leave the stem there until I get to the stem. I can draw this leaf in though. Just adding a bit more of a curve at the point. It's just these little refinements you can make as you go. As I just keep saying, the pencil is just that guideline. So what else? Nothing much really. It's just been a funny old week where lots of things have, just crashed in on me in one way or another. The number of deliveries I've had has been ridiculous, so leaving the house hasn't been possible because, of course, they never give you an exact time. Some companies do, but it's not usually long enough for you to go out and do many errands. And then Amazon never give you a time. And even when they do, there seems to be a habit where they just leave the packages on my doorstep and they don't even knock the door at the moment. Not all of them, some do. One today did. But because I'm always here, or nearly always here, and especially if I have a package coming, I'll always remain in. Because I don't like them being left outside just in case. I mean, my street is really quiet and it's a dead-end street and nobody much comes up here. Unless you've got business in the street, there's no reason for anybody to be here. should I say a cul-de-sac, dead end street. And there's only 11 houses in the street, so, but you never know, as some of the things I'd ordered were quite expensive as well. So I was thinking while I was having a bath earlier, something came to my mind. Because I often say that a lot of my flowers and my work is very stylised. And it's very reminiscent of arts and crafts, a bit of Art Nouveau, and the earlier the artists that were the precursors to the arts and crafts, like William Burgess. And what came to my mind, and I think I've said this before, is that not far from me, just a few miles down the road, literally a few kilometres, is a rebuilt medieval sort of like mini castle manor. It's now called a castle, and it's Castell, which means the Red Castle. And it was rebuilt in Victorian times by the 3rd Marquis of Bute, I think. And the architect and artist he engaged to design and build it was a chap called William Burgess. Now, Castell used to be free to go in there. It's now run by Cadw, so if you remember Cadw, Cadw is the Welsh version of English heritage, so they look after a lot of the heritage sites, castles and other things around the world. Around the world in Wales, sorry, around Wales. And but they now charge, unless you remember. And but it's still a lovely place to go. But I remember many Sunday afternoons after lunch down there, walking in the woods behind it, the smell of wild garlic there, because the wild garlic grows in a huge profusion, and you get swathes of bluebells and other flowers, and you even get corn, wheat growing there from, you know, from seeds that, you know, come from neighbouring farms and so on. And I saw a little harvest mouse there once, which was fascinating, and I watched it for ages until I got shouted at to keep up with everybody. But you could go into the castle, and inside it's an extravaganza of decoration in the arts and crafts style, sort of precursor of arts and crafts. Everything, all the walls painted with lavish decorations and patterns and designs, the ceilings too, and even the furniture was designed in this way, and it's kind of a nostalgic look back on medieval times. It's got towers that have got the conical roofs on, inspired by the walled city of Carcassonne in southern France. And it was just a magical place, and looking at all of these things, and it just struck me today how much of an influence that must have been on my artistic style without me realising it, and the things I love to draw. And I'm not sure if I've said that before, but every time, if I have, I don't think it struck me quite as much as it did today with those memories, and I don't know why. I think the memories come up when you need them. And I think that's why I love drawing very stylised things. It also suits me because it's quite something for me to be able to look at something like a flower, for example, and pick out what its characteristics are, what makes it different to others, and try and capture its essence in this kind of way. Something I had to do while I was studying science in school and university was we'd have to do drawings of things we saw, particularly with ecology and environmental pollution. So you'd go out and survey, and you'd have to record what you could see when you got back to the lab. So you'd be lab, drawing flowers you collected, and viewing them under the microscope and dissecting them so you could see all the different parts and every single thing, the whole flower, then the individual parts and things cut in half and so on, to show what you'd found and to identify it and make notes as well with that. And I absolutely loved doing it. Now here I think I've got enough leaves and things on. I don't think I'm going to put any more leaves or any berries on here. I'm just going to leave it as it is. So I'm just going to ink in my border, because then I can give this let this dry for a few moments, and then I can erase all the pencil lines. And this gives me the area I want to work in to add any background colour or background pattern. And I think I like the colour here, so I may go for a very pale colour to add the background colours in. Okay. So so I was just thinking about that earlier, and I just thought, oh, it's interesting. And I should know this. I'm sure I've made the connection before, but every now and again it comes back to me, and it reminds me of how much I love this kind of art and how much I try to invalidate it, as it seems too easy, too simple to do. But I'm guessing that I invalidate it because I find it easy and simple to do, and I know that not everybody will, because not everybody's like me. Kneadable eraser, because it's less likely to damage the surface of the paper. And I may have some tiny pencil marks left that I can't get out, but I'll be fine with those. As long as they mostly go, I'm happy. Now, if I was going to frame this, I think I'd want to put this onto a matte board behind, a coloured matte board, and then have a frame round it, showing some of that colour, because I like this edge to it. So I don't need the frame to come in, which makes it really useful because, you know, I've got that ability to do that. So, okay, my next step is I am going to add some graphite, some pencil, and I'm trying to decide whether I'm going to use the matte ones or the other pencil I often use. So just let me turn around a moment and see if I can find the pencils. It's not in that pencil case. Is it in this one? One hopes so. Yes, there we go. And I've got a lucky tortillon there. Or paper stamp. Ah, I've got clean tortillons here. So I'll just get one out, and I shall pop that to one side for cleaning afterwards. I'll give this a quick sharpen, if I can remember. There's my sharpener. Oh, it doesn't want, reckons that it's sharp enough. I don't think so. There we go. Obviously it is, as far as my pencil sharpness is concerned. So I'm doing this because I'm using watercolour or water-soluble inks, watercolour inks, and they're transparent, so this will show through. So this is a new one, and I'm just going to gently blend this and just blend it out that little bit, but I don't want to fill the whole of this space with grey. I want to keep the grey where the shadows are going to be. There's going to be some shadow under here because it's curling back under, so, and over here because it's curling over. So just a tiny bit there, and I'll just tease that out that little bit. So that's looking, that's got some dimension to it. If anything, I could have this a bit darker under there and perhaps a bit darker down there. The thing about graphite is that it's always best to go lighter to begin with, because you can always add some more. I want to keep that darkness right in the nooks and cranny. I'm getting quite excited because it looks like there could be possibly a volcanic eruption in Iceland soon. During the pandemic, there were two near Geldingull. Yeah, I can say it in my head, but getting it out of my mouth is causing me problems. And there's been a huge amount of earthquake activity near there in the last couple of days. And the sort of like live webcams and stations have started up again to show the landscape. So I started checking in on that a couple of times a day on YouTube. I just caught the start of the second eruption that was in the same volcanic system. So I'm quite looking forward to this happening again. I'm absolutely fascinated by the power of the earth and the wonders of things like volcanic eruptions. And I can watch it, and hopefully there'll be some cameras that have sound on, because the sound is amazing. And I can remember the sound of, as the lava was moving, a lot of it solidified, but as it was breaking up and moving and tumbling, it sounded like glass, tinkling broken glass. And because of course, when lava cools very quickly, it turns to a glass-like solid. And so it's not surprising, but the sound was just so gorgeous to my ears anyway. So I found that absolutely fascinating, and the gentle booms, because the sound is, recorded from a fair distance away from the volcano itself. And it's like falling asleep to the sound of a storm. So yeah, I used this volcanic sounds as a lullaby. I kid you not. And it was so exciting to see how it developed and grew, because it literally started as a tiny hole in the ground, a tiny little crack. Both of them did. I think they didn't catch the second one until it had broken out into a fissure, so a slit in the ground. And then eventually there was a few cones erupting, then it went to just one. And that didn't go for as long as the original one. But it's all exciting. Yeah. Well, you can take the scientist out of the girl. Well, you can take the girl out of science, but you can't take the scientist out of her. There'll always be that love and interest there. And rocks, geology, the movement of the earth, how landforms are developed, geomorphology. These are things I've always been interested in for as long as I can remember. I'm not sort of like and that came from, actually, another story. I may have told this before, so don't shoot me if you remember it. But not far from where I live, I say not far, it's probably about 3/4 of an hour drive. And this was in the days when not many people had cars. We did. And a large family and friends, so there used to be 2 big cars used to go with. In the days, the kids could get in the back of an estate car and nobody would give a hoot. And there used to be tons of kids. I think in the estate car, there would be like 8, 11 kids in there, because they were all fairly little, my brother's friends. And in the other one there might be 3, 5 or 6 in there, depending on how little everybody was and how many you could fit in the back seats. And if my grandmother and grandfather would go, there'd be some in their car as well. I'd usually go with them for the relative peace and quiet. But anyway, along the coast there's a huge amount of fossils. They're all Carboniferous, which is the time before the dinosaurs, though some dinosaurs have been found a little further along, back eastwards along the coast, at Sully near Penarth, which is near Cardiff, and they're unique in the world, not known about, which is so exciting. And I've seen them, sort of, the remains of them. They're housed in the museum in Cardiff, so the moulds or pictures of them are there, because they're very valuable. But there were tons of ammonites, which are the spiral-shelled fossils, and belemnites, which are the insides of squid. And there'd be what they call devil's toenails, which are sort of like mussels. They're of the same kind of family, if I remember rightly. And I used to collect things there and just walk around looking at them. And my brothers would climb up the cliffs, which was ridiculous. But one of the things there was an anticline, which is where the rocks have been folded upwards into a big arch kind of shape, but a solid arch. And this one was amazing because they'd almost been bent upwards, so the ones in the middle were bent up amongst themselves. It wasn't a gentle one, it was a really steep one. And it used to appear in all the geology books as an example, a classic example of a syncline or anticline syncline, because they usually come together, and they were at each side we had something going up. And that used to fascinate me because the power needed to bend rocks, it's astounding. Over the years, it's been 50 odd years since I've been visiting that area, and sadly the syncline has eroded so much, which is only going to happen because it's the natural process on the earth. But you can still see it in essence, and I remember how it was, and I'm sure I've got books here somewhere with images of it, and I think it's still used, even though it's been so eroded, as that example of a fantastic syncline, anticline, folded rocks. So that's where my love of fossils and the earth comes from, it's all of these things, and the fascination with flowers. It was the one thing my mother would talk about and mention, and taught names of flowers and so on, identified them, and I got a love of that, though it was only for a short time that she could do that. She didn't show a lot of interest in what I was interested in generally, what I was doing. So, long story. Don't need to repeat it here. I can remember sitting in rock pools and seeing all the sea anemones round me, opening and closing, and tiny little fish and creatures darting around in the sun-warmed water in the day. It used to be lovely. It really, really did. My brothers would be splashing around in the sea, my father with them, and I would go in the sea and swim, but I much preferred to be away from them because they're very boisterous and noisy, and it's best to be away from being called names and made fun of, so that's what I used to do. My mother was never on the beach. She'd always sit in the car with her own flask of tea and the paper, with a look on her face like she'd sucked a sour lemon. So strange woman, as I say. So I'm just adding shadow to the flowers. Some around the outside of these lower petals or sepals or whatever they are. Lower part of this. I'm going to put some actually underneath that second band here as well, as if there's a shadow under there. And I like the way that the graphite blends out smoothly. And although I don't like it on its own particularly, I mean it puts some dimension into this, but it doesn't really bring the flowers to life, to my mind. You might see me using the Kneadable eraser from time to time. The nice thing about Kneadable erasers is you can mould them, so I've got quite a sharp edge there. I don't know if you can see. There's a sharp edge here, so I can just get in and just erase just a bit of the extra shadow. I'll come back and do the petals in a moment. So here I want quite a bit of darkness there, and down inside the edges. The outside, so you often have shadows on the outside, left and right of these And put one there, do some here. So just helps with that little bit of shadow there, which helps to set things in, you know, in the dimension that suggests this is lower than these petals here. I want to remove some of the grey graphite from there and there. It's a bit mucky. This one needs blending out a bit more. It's gone quite harsh edged here, so I may just have to put that in and just dab some off with that. So that's looking not too shabby. Put some shadows just down the left or the bottom of these parts. There's such small areas that I just think that on one side with perhaps a hint on the other will do it. So there'll be enough left on this tortillon just to do that. I'm just going to add some shadows where these connect as well, just to add some interest there. And then I've just got the petals to do, so I'm just going to put some at the base in these little sections here. So it won't take me long, because the method's going to be the same for each flower that has petals. I've done the seed head one. And then I'll start adding some colour. I'm going to use some Ecoline pens today because I can. Okay, let's get going with these, is it? And I'm going to spread a little bit of graphite around the edges as well, just to bring that little hint of shadow around the edge so we get a bright area right in the middle. So let's see how this works. It'll be quite delicate, but again, I know that if I need to brighten anywhere up a little bit more, I can always get my eraser onto it for me. Like I think I'm going to have to there. I was looking everywhere for my Tombow Mono eraser, which is a tiny, tiny pointed razor. It looks a bit like a mechanical pencil, but it's got an eraser in it. I think it's something like 2mm in diameter, which would be perfect. Do you think I can find it? It'll turn up when I'm no longer looking for it, you know that. It's okay, I'll make do with this one. So I really want to do that before I add any colours, just to put the highlights where I want the highlights to be. And then I know, because I'm working with water-soluble media, I can always dab the colour out. My love of Gothic architecture, church architecture, has always been there with me. I'm just going to put some down the side here of this one, I think. Yeah. But Romanesque. I can remember it was suggested I go to a church called Kilpeck by a friend, an archaeologist friend, and I was absolutely blown away by it, and the sculpture that's there, the pattern that was used. And I've since visited, you know, many Romanesque churches, certainly in my own area, and abbeys and so on, and some other parts as well. I haven't done much in the past few years for one reason or another, pandemic, but they're not going anywhere. Kilpeck has been there since the 12th century, the 1100s. barely unchanged as well, which is amazing if you think about it. So that looks really lovely. Now then, colours. Let me just move my pens and stuff out my way. Excuse the bangs and crashes. I shall keep the eraser because the eraser box is there. I have got that. I've got a piece of paper. And this is my tub full of Ecolines. I've got all the colours, as always. So, what colour shall I do these? I want a lovely golden colour. So I've got deep yellow or gold ochre would be nice. I'll get those two out. I may need the saffron yellow's lovely actually as well. Use the gold ochre because I know I like that one. Got lots of pinks here, some are very bright and so on, but I think I might need to use a different colour for the petals. I think I'm going to go with blues. I've got this blue, which is turquoise blue, and I've got a paler blue here, which is pastel blue, and I wouldn't mind something that's that little bit darker, and I think I'm going to go with this one, which is a bluish green. Yeah, I know it goes from blue to green. And then for the leaves, I definitely want to use this one, which is grass green. And I want another green. I want one. This one is bronze green. So I don't think I want a bright yellow green, do I? Spring green. If I do, I'll come back to that. But let's have a look and see how everything is going to work. So I'm going to use yellow for various things. I've got green as well. Just want to get my water running in my water brush. So it's a Kuretake water brush, and it's medium size, and it's got a large amount. It's got a large tank in it, which makes me happy. Okay, so I'm going to do the outside of these in, I think I'll use the golden ochre. So I'm putting plenty of colour at the bottom, a little bit on the tip, perhaps a little bit down the side as well, so we've got that there. And this should actually spread out quite nicely. If I get any water coming out my brush, there is water coming. So it's a bit more on the browny side, but I'm quite happy with that. And just by using one colour with that graphite, I'm getting that variation in colour. It actually ties in quite nicely with the background. This I think might just need a bit more colour on. So I'm just dotting it in the wet areas and just letting it do its thing really. So it will spread in its own little way. These have dried on this side. I want to try and keep an area that's lighter in between. This one will need a bit of help, I think, just to spread out. It's dried on the edges. But let's see if we can just get it spreading out like that. So we've got that going. I'll move these out the way. Okay, so I'm going to do the same in this area. It'll work quite quickly. So I haven't put any dark colour at the top per se. I'm just adding some colour to fill this in and get the paper nice and damp. So I can come back and just touch some more of this colour in. And hopefully it will spread itself without too much effort. Bottom bits have, the top bits not so much, but that's okay because that's why I've got a water brush. But because the paper's wet, it actually moves much easier than I put it on dry paper. Quite impressed with this colour actually. I'm always afraid that the grey makes everything look that much muckier But I guess it doesn't really. It does that. It makes things look more metallic, I think, but without the shine. Does that make sense? Like sometimes metals are kind of anodized. There we go. We've got some going up there as I draw on myself. See, it's drying so quickly today again. It's a bit warmer today than it has been. Oh, I've started crocheting a blanket as well. With this overwhelming desire to do a mosaic blanket. I gave my first and only one away to someone, and I haven't had the heart to make myself one. So I ordered some Lion Brand yarn, the mandalas, which come in cakes, which instead of balls, and certainly not skeins, which you have to wind yourself. And I've got them in 2 different colours. There's sort of some commonality in the colours between them, but one's got more vibrant colours than the other, I guess. And I'm just going to see what happens with them. So far, I really like what I've got. This sort of like earthy greens and these lovely colours that remind me of autumn, like oranges and reds. And they look really nice together, and you know, reddy brown. So there's blues in them as well as greens and some yellowish colours, I think. So they should work nicely together. Okay. In the middle is where I also want to put some yellow or brown, but I think I'm going to go and get an orange, also known as orange. What's that one? I don't fancy light orange. That's the saffron yellow. That might actually work. Can I see? What's that? It's yellow ochre, which is a much brownier colour. I think I'll go for the saffron yellow because I think this is a bit more of an orange. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to put some water down in the centre. I'm not going to do all of these. I'm just going to add some, just so you can see what the colours are. I'll pop that there, and I'll pop some of the deep yellow above. Which means I've got to remember what I used for each part, haven't I? So I can just blend them together. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag a damp brush down the middle just to create a bit of a highlight there as well. And when that dries, it'll be darker. Do the same in this one. The only problem is that they do dry quite quickly. That's even though I wet the paper. It'll be fine. Again, I'll just clean some of it off in the middle so we've got a highlight there. And I'll do this one as well while I'm at it, because, well, you know, we can, can't we? That saffron yellow is a much more orangey colour, whereas the gold ochre has definitely got a brownish tint to it. There we go. Got a lot of the orange there and less of the yellow, but it's fine. They look like they all belong-ish. Okay, let me just clean a bit more of the colour out there. Perhaps a little bit more here. So that's beginning to work. Now bear in mind that I am going to put patterns on the tops of these. This bit here I really do want in yellow. So I use gold ochre. I'm not going to use the yellow ochre, but I think I might go back to the gold ochre for this band. Just pop some of the gold ochre on either side. This has decided that it's going to be really wet on me for some reason. Weird. Oh, it is the gold ochre. Who knows? So I'm just going to take a little bit of the colour off in the middle with a clean brush, just to remove some of the colour to give a highlight. Bearing in mind that I'll increase that highlight, so we've got those going on. So let me just pop those colours to one side so I can remember what I've used. I like the more glowing nature. I'm quite tempted to put some of the saffron yellow though on these sides here, and you can, because you can layer them and spread them out. So this is the saffron yellow, which is that more orangey colour. So I'm just going to add some here and allow it to blend out. Quite like that, it gives it that warmth that is lacking perhaps. That's nice. Don't ever be afraid of layering colours. You know, I'd say this to myself quite often, Angela, it's only paper, it's a bit of your time, and you never know, you might like what you produce, and if you don't, you'll learn something from it. So that just helps to increase the contrast, so they look almost glowy. Okie dokes, now then, I am going to use different colours for the different flowers. So for the top one here, to begin with, I'm just going to use this pastel blue at the base, and I'm going to spread it out so we get a lighter top. In fact, this pastel blue looks a bit insipid, doesn't it? So I might give it a chance to dry, as I've used. Why is there no water coming? There will. It does look a bit insipid, doesn't it? Have a look and see if I... No, that's not going to work for me. So that can go back away. Let's go to this turquoise blue. Oh, that's better. Much more vibrant. Because again, this is something I love particularly, is vibrant colours. And the use of the graphite tones them down so they look a bit duskier, a bit less in-your-faceier. And of course, because I'm blending them out towards the edge of the petals are naturally getting lighter towards their edges, which is what they often do in nature. Though some get lighter towards the centre of the flower. Depends what plant we're talking about. But here I want that colour spreading. It's drying very quickly today. But just add a dot more on the bases, and perhaps a little bit up while it's damp, because that'll move in the dampness, but it will also allow me just to blend some more out and get some variation going on as well. And that contrast, which is so important to bring out layers. So that'll do. And again, I'm not too worried about it being perfect because I know I'm going to be adding some texture over it. I must probably put some white lines over these, because I think white lines would look nice. When you look close to petals, you often see like a glistening line. Oh, that's why the lid of my pen has ended up in my bin. I shall find it afterwards. Numpty. I kid you not, I'm such a numpty. Obviously didn't put it down. Right, let's have a look. Let's just get some water on these here. Trying to stay within the petals. I don't mind if it cross over the lines. Let's just put some on here. That should be fine once I move it. This colour looks really lovely against the orange, I think, orange yellows. Beginning to think some purple would look good as well. But I've chosen these colours, so I'm going to stick with them. Now this one, I'm going to get technical, because I think on the first two rows I'm going to put this one. And then on the last two I'll use the lighter colour, so we're going to get some variation that way. Didn't add any water to these, so I'm able to try different ways of adding the colour and seeing what happens. Got a lot of water coming out my brush now. I've squeezed it a bit too hard. Be fine. Just get that out and just let me add some dots of water on this one while it's still damp, because they'll move the colour outwards and will create highlight areas quite naturally. Same here. Still just a little bit too damp, and I've got some of the orange bleeding in here, which is fine. Just add a bit more. It's actually bled out. It is what it is. I'm not going to fuss with it too much because I know that I'll end up making a right pig's ear of it. So here I'm going to use the lighter colour. So just put a little bit of the lighter blue in, and then you can just blend these out. And I've got some of this colour, I can dab it onto these so they mix in the flower or in the petals. So I'll get a mixture of the colours here in this one. I do need just a bit more of this here because it's all faded out. So we can sort that one. That works. So those will be fine. As I say, I'm going to add some pattern. Okay, for the leaves, I'm going to use bronze green. I don't think I'm going to use the light one. I think I'm just going to use one colour for now. And I'm going to put the ink where the shadows are. And then I'm just going to move just the edge of the ink and create a highlight and a pale colour there. Part of me thinks perhaps I ought to colour the whole leaf in and then lift a highlight out, which is always possible. But I do like a high level of contrast, don't I? Comes out in my work so often. And the graphite pencil really is helping here. I wonder what would happen. I know if I used graphite pencil I'd have the colour of the graphite that would shift, but the graphite part of it behaves as a graphite pencil. So I think I've done shading with graphitints and then used water to activate the colour and get a lovely gradient there. So we're getting, I actually quite like this. That's okay. Just a bit more colour at the tip and the base here on this area. Just a little bit down there. That increases the contrast. I should have done that with the other ones while they were still damp. But I can still go back and add a little bit more. And just move it about with hopefully what is now just a damp brush rather than one that's flooding with water. Yeah, that's better. Again, just that extra bit of contrast. Of course, this is important because as the ink dries, as the colour dries, it lightens quite a fair amount in colour. It becomes less saturated. So the ability to go back and add more colour once it's dry is very useful. So you can see we've got some, I think I've got some really nice contrast going. These bits here I'm just going to put the darkest tone where the shadows are. Just went outside the lines a little bit here, but I'll be alright. And then I'm just going to drag some of the colour over so we get a highlight on the side that's to the right and top. So here I've just got a little bit of the ink has spilled out, but I can just gradually take that away like that. And then for the stem, I'm going to use this. And in places I'm just going to spread it out so we're getting a variation in colour down the stem, so the stem isn't all the same colour. I think that's what I'd like to do. making sure that it's darkest where we've got things overlapping. So, you know, we've got a leaf here, so we could say, well, that's overlapping on the edge of that. Pop some of this in there. In here. And right at the bottom. Though I think the stem at the bottom would be lighter. In reality, in practice, I'm just creating interest with colour, I suppose, and variation in the tones, rather than creating anything realistic. This helps me greatly working with stylized things, because when I look at something, I see so much detail in it. I can find it really, really difficult to filter things out. I really, really can. And causes me all kinds of problems. Now then, I want, these colours are too much the same for me, so I'm looking for a red that would work on those. I've got a reddish brown. No, I don't want that. I think that one's mahogany. I don't want that. I want a red. That's Carmine. Carmine. I've got scarlet. Let's go for Carmine, which is a pinkish red. And I think that would go really nicely on these colours here. And I think next to that turquoise as well, it will look rather good. Come on, a bit more water, thank you. Too samey here, it's hard to see which is which. In a way. I could do with a bit more. Just adding dots. And here I can start to work at that blue and remove it. Blend it in. And this one I'm going to have a look and see what it's like if I add the red inside. What's nice as well with this watercolour paper, the first layers kind of stick to it, you know, sink into it. Actually, that's quite nice with it in the middle. So on this one, I'm going to put some both in the middle, but on the outside areas as well. A little bit in there, and see what it looks like if I do them all. So I can't go back and change what I, you know, change these first ones. Well, I can actually, because if I like it in all sections, I can go back and add the red in all of the sections then, can't I? But I can't change this one to one or the other, as it were. There we go. Yep, my window's open in my bedroom, or my work areas. I've got a huge bedroom and I like being upstairs out the way. And it's a one-bedroomed house I live in. There were 2 bedrooms knocked into one. So it's huge, it's the width of the house and about half the depth of the house, if not a bit more. So I've got plenty of space. I actually do like the red on all parts. So let's do that. Let's get some lovely, lovely red going. Just think it's more vibrant than the yellowy colours. I think it's just needed to lift the colours that little bit and intensify them. And taking that red up to the top, so we've got some red there, is rather useful. Let me just pick some colour up from the areas where it's going to be highlighted. I just peel some of this red away, clean it off. I'll get some of that yellow showing through, and perhaps I can get some of the red around the edges. I think it'll be fine. So we've got these all happening here. Right, it's 1 hour and 14 minutes. You're going to get a long video whether you like it or not. I'm thinking I might as well just finish all of them, but I'm not going to. I'm going to behave. So here I've got a white gel pen. I want a finer, preferably an 01. Got an 01 pen. I have got gold here, but I'm going to use calligraphy ink when I'm going to add gold. For these petals, I said at the top, I was just going to put some fine white lines in there. So I'm putting them in with a dot at the top, trying to get them right the way down to the pen line. Oh, there we are, I've broken that one up. This is a pigment gel. It's a Pentel hybrid gel, which means that it dries opaque, and I think it dries waterproof as well, or water resistant at least, as pigment inks tend to do. So that's lightened that up. Okay, the bottom here, I do want to do, I just want to tidy that up a bit. Okay, let me get got my calligraphy ink here. I want a fine brush. Spot a fine brush, Angela. There's a fine brush. Fine as in not very thick, it's a 3-0, so it's 0.00, so it's tiny. But I know I can use it quite happily here, because I do want to put some gold dots in this section. And this brush, I can get larger dots, I can get small dots, depending on how I use it, and enormous dots if I really want enormous dots. And if I practice more, I can actually draw patterns with this as well, this brush. Or even finer ones. You can, I think, get finer ones than this. They use them in painting miniatures. So I don't know if that's showing up. Let me just pick it up. There we go. So look, there's a bald gap there, there's a little gap there, there's one there, there. So I'll pick it up again so you can see what I've done, hopefully. There you go. I do like that. Do you know what? I might do that to all of them, rather than do something different with each. There is just something lovely about having these gold dots. Now what am I going to do in the middle section? I could put dots, but I fancy doing something different there. So I may see if I can dig out a really fine brush to use to add some pattern. Okay, that needs another dot just there, another one just there, and perhaps one just there and there. Okie dokes, let's have a look here. I wonder if I can adjust the lamp so you can see. No, I don't think I can. Is that lamp on? Don't think that helps either. So the tricky thing in using metallics, I don't have a wonderful light setup here. I am literally working at my desk where my big computer is. And I really don't want the fuss and fiddle of things like ring lamps and overhead lights because I don't do well with bright lights myself. Give me headaches. There we go. So I'll move that so you can see it, hopefully. It's lovely and sparkly. You can see. That's very luxurious. Okay, let me just find, I've got a fine pen here, pen, brush. Now this one oddly is a 2-0 and yet it's finer than this 3-0. See, it depends on the make. And this one's bristles are much stiffer as well. So I should be able to, happily, be able to get some lines drawn in or patterns. Let's have a look. So with this one, I'm just going to start at the base and I'm just going to draw in some shattuck. Now I won't be able to do it this fine with a gel pen. That's the beauty of brushes. I haven't got enough ink on this one. There's a sort of like an optimal amount of ink, which is enough to do a few lines, but without the lines being too thick because you've got too much paint on your brush. And I need a very light hand, so you can see it sometimes I'm not even getting anything on the paper. So I'm trying not to have a heavy pressure here. So I know this must be frustrating if you can't see what I'm doing in particular, but I will show you. There we go. Look. There. I think you can see it there. Yeah. Very opulent. I'm saying that word, it's my favourite, it's my word of the day. So, in this one, let me see if I can actually get this light. I'll move my light along here a bit. And let's see if we can get it bouncing off this so you can see this as I work. Yeah, that's better, isn't it? Oh yeah, look at that. And I can still see what I'm doing. Yeah, you're okay there, aren't you? Yeah, we're fine. Yeah, there's a bit of my light just off the edge there. That's better. Let's see if we can just get that again. I think it's still... Oh gosh. Can move it back. There we go. You can see it all now. Right. So in this one, I'm going to attempt to do a checkerboard pattern. So I'm going to put the central line in. And I'm going to do the horizontal lines, which are not that easy to do. I don't want to go over the pen lines if I can help it, but I know I can always go back over them with a black pen to disguise them. Just check. That's better. So this is going to be deuced hard to photograph. I think I may have to make do with the images I've got here. Oh no, I put that in the wrong place. It's okay. We'll just accept that it's as it is. So we've got little squares there as a counterpoint to the dots. And then I've just got this one section here to do. And I think this one, I think I'm just going to do some chevrons. And I have just hit the black line with some ink. As I said, I'm not going to panic and fret too much because I know I can remove it. It's been a long time since I've used brushes and metallic paints or inks. Now the only other thing I need to do something with are these bands here. And I think in the bands I'm just going to put some dots in the highlighted area, big one, and perhaps getting smaller towards the edge. And that, I think, will be fine for that. That red and gold looks fantastic, I must say, even though my hands are quite clumsy. My pen, you know, it looks really, really lovely. So I just want to finish off the petals. Now ideally I do have metallic paint, watercolour paints here which I could use, and I do have, there's one in there that is white. I think I've got some of the Fine Tech or the Kuretake Gansai ones, but I've also got some Paul Rubens, so like mica iridescent ones. So, but because I've started with this gel pen, I'm going to carry on. And you'll get an idea then of what this will look like when it's finished. Last one here. So that's lightened up these and given these that kind of texture that you sometimes see in petals, so it gives some interest there. I'm not going to put gold or white on the leaves. I want the flowers to be the bits that shine. I might put some little gold dots actually, just a sprinkling of, and I might just spatter gold over it when it's, you know, no I won't because I'll end up messing it up. But I do want to put some veins in the leaves because these become contour lines and help to give that feeling of movement. So I'm going to start with one that goes up the middle of the leaf like that, and then I can put ones to either side depending on how dark you want them. The closer together the darker the leaf will look. So that's already accentuating, it's making the shape more obvious here. Okay, let's do this one as well. So I'm dotting where the highlight is, breaking the line and allowing the ink to again create that contrast. And just the last one to do over here. I'm trying not to go too near these in case the ink is still wet. So that'll do there. And then this one, like so. And for the stems and these bits underneath, I'm just going to add some lines to the left or bottom, depending on what direction they're going in. You really want the top one closest to the flower to be the darkest because they'll be in the greatest amount of shadow. And then the stem isn't very interesting as it is. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put very tiny lines along the left and bottom parts. So we're getting a bit of a shadow and a bit of a texture there. So this is where, ooh, fierce windy. So you can see how that's progressing and just adds that bit of shadow and bit of depth. And then on the other side I could put some gold, but I think I'll just put some little white dots here and there just to give a bit of a highlight. Perhaps here, actually. That would make more sense than me using gold, actually. And it adds that variation that makes things interesting, I guess. So, if I pick this up, you can see that sparkle and shine of these. I'll just see if I can catch it on. Oh yes, there we go. So there we are. I'll finish this off while the video is processing and uploading, and I'll get a decent enough picture afterwards for you as well, hopefully. May not be today though, maybe tomorrow. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and I look forward to seeing you again. So take care, be well, be kind to yourselves, and find time to be creative. Bye for now. Bye.